is full of devils, always with their eyes out for the next best thing. She looks around and at first she sees you, but after sucking you dry she says she's ready through. And so she walks along to find next little sucker who will buy her drinks, and maybe he will love her. But then as soon as she comes she goes, you got nothing, is this hell? Maybe not, but I'll send you already there if you're going out tonight.
Michael Schofield. Yes, I served in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Served in the United States Marine Corps. I'm a veteran. Enjoyed a lot of my military experience, and I'm now here in Monterey, where it's a very military, veteran-friendly place, and enjoy being in this part of California that appreciates veterans. Well, this place is a little unusual, and also that there's a mix of a lot of people from around the world as well going to the Monterey Institute of International Studies, I believe it's called. So you just have a mix of different languages, different cultures, and military personnel learning all sorts of different languages. So it just has a unusual feel from most cities where it's all usually a military city versus all just a civilian city. So here it's a little bit better blend of both civilians and military personnel. It was definitely something that made me introspective, I suppose. The relationship of the two men in the film, initially the one that was the clone took on this pet sort of animal type of posture, and I think that part of the movie was a tough transformation for me, watching another human being sort of act as a pet. Just forget whatever you have a concept of movies that you've probably seen in your life before. This is definitely something that's not cut from the typical Hollywood film genre, I suppose. I try to stick with it till the end, and you know, take a look at things that are going on around in your own personal life and see how it may relate to you. Myself, Michael Schofield, watching this film, learning something about Alan Dawson from the beginning, I saw this very empty human being that wasn't somebody that you'd want to be an acquaintance of. And I just saw a lot of bad behavior from him, though I had tried to have some sympathy and give him the benefit of the doubt, because I had reflected into my own life at different points in my journey where I have been an empty, not a good human being as well. So I tried to work with the part of the film that I found to be very uncomfortable to watch. That was the treatment of Alan to D'Agostino when he was in his pet type of part of the film. I'd like to believe that most human beings don't like to see another human being treated like an animal. So it's uncomfortable to watch, and I'd like to believe in myself that if I watched another human being try to treat another human being as like an animal, that I would intervene in that situation.
Well, before the movie, we saw a paragraph on a piece of paper, so didn't have a huge idea of what to expect per se.
Yeah.
It just looked really interesting. The main premise of it sounded almost like the beginning of Born. It's actually like the whole shipwrecked, not having memory thing. I was like, that was good, so this might be good. And I feel like catching a movie. Well, I'm in school right now, working on my next degree, but I'm a psychology major and kind of just focusing on school and enjoying a nice weekend.
I'm an arts major and in school right now as well. We're just out for the weekend. The film was great. It's very unexpected. Say
It was
I don't
not
know.
easy to predict,
It
which
was
was
not
a
easy to
refreshing
predict,
change
yeah.
of pace.
The next scene never really, you never really saw it coming. So, well, I wouldn't actually want to give too much away. I definitely suggest that they see the movie, but I wouldn't want to try to explain it too much. A lot of it you just have to see. Yeah.
Psychologically, it was very intriguing. Well, because there was a lot of complexes, and it's interesting, especially studying right now abnormal psychology. We're talking about several different theories, like you have Maslow's hierarchy, and that explains that after you take care of like food and shelter, everything else develops in a very different way as far as priorities go, and that if you were not used to having those things and then they were provided but they felt like they were coming at a certain cost, you would do whatever that cost was to maintain those base needs. And same with Pavlovian psychology, which is like when you do the same thing over and over, just something that would come before it even starts triggers the same response in your system. Well, it relates because the very last scene you don't see coming at all. But then, other than the fact of the drastic change in behavior, there's really no change in complex. The complex stays exactly the same. It's still Pavlovian psychology, it's still Maslow's hierarchy. He's still following the same principles he's been taught. He just now has a greater capacity to fulfill them to a different end and a greater length.
He's very human.
Yes.
I expect he reacted in much the same way that a lot of people would. You kind of saw when he started to get towards his carnal desires that it was not surprising. But for sure, his childhood has definitely had some issues going on. I mean, he ended up very narcissistic, very cynical.
Even before he met.
Yeah, before he had any power over anything.
He was still in a very unhealthy relationship, even before. Like, again, if you grow up with something as normal, or you have very bad boundaries set on you too young, or way too wide boundaries, then you might not realize that. You probably knew what he was doing was wrong, but there's a difference between realizing that something is wrong and realizing how wrong it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would never say, after having seen the film, that like, oh, well, that guy clearly had some sort of mental disorder or something. I would never go there. I would be like, he reacted in a way a lot of humans would. I would say interesting, pay attention, definitely. I'd say it is a good psychological study. If like a school wanted to use that, it's got good material in there. Definitely some,
Yeah, and like
proper dynamics for that.
on the same level that all of us as humans, like regardless of how we express them, we still have certain drives built within us. And it all, like how you behave depends to a great deal on your social conditioning, not whether you actually like or dislike something.
And I'd probably ask somebody before they watch the movie to think about the question, like, if you had complete control over another human being, what would you do? And just keep that in mind when you're watching the movie. Just kind of, would you agree with the way that he does things? Or, like, would you try to nurture this person? Like, what would you do with this completely blank slate of an individual? So.
Not what you think you would do, because complete power changes dynamics.
Yeah.
Especially complete power in a setting where
Yeah,
you're the only one who
nobody
knows what's going
monitoring
on.
you. Yeah. completely unsupervised control of another human being. God, it's.
I feel like it's a good thing that those situations don't arise very often.
It's good that
I
I
think
don't.
they would get out of
honestly.
hand very quickly.
I'd like to say that I do the right thing, but exactly to what the right thing is isn't clear, and to be completely honest with myself, not sure that I would.
Not to mention, when you go back to conditioning, how somebody reacts to something doesn't mean whether that thing is right or wrong. It's how they've been conditioned to act or how they view something.
Yeah, that's
what I think is
Stockholm
normal
syndrome,
may not be what you think is normal.
Yeah, that's just like rape victims or kidnap victims getting Stockholm syndrome. Like, just because they're reacting in a positive way to you does not mean you're doing the right thing. And that's the same thing here. Definitely, he starts reacting in a very like, oh, this is, an emotional relationship. This is, and it's actually a very abusive
Situation.
Yeah.
It was very unique, and to me, if you're an honest person, I think you would enjoy it. But I think that if you are someone who is conflicted in themselves, that you might find it very disturbing. Like, it might hit too close to home.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. If you can be honest and put yourself in his shoes and say, you know what, it's not completely unlikely I would make some of those decisions, that I would go down some of those really bad paths. Doing something yourself and looking at a third party is completely different. So, as a viewer, try to put yourself in his shoes. Try to put yourself in all of their shoes. Just see what you would do.
My name is Mike Schmitz. I live in Carmel Valley, California, and I see several movies a week. My experience was, I guess, somewhat mystified, and overall, the film is unpredictable, but somehow compelling, and of course, at the end, quite shocking. I would say if you are interested in a film that is not the usual run-of-the-mill, not that you would find in a multiplex anywhere in the country, this might be for you. My view is that it is difficult at times to understand the motivations of the main character and why he feels the need to keep someone else, however much of a clone he is supposed to be, in a slave-like condition. But once you accept that premise, that there is something about this main character that compels him to do this, then you wonder, what will happen next, and how will this resolve itself? And as I said earlier, it's unpredictable and somewhat shocking as to how this will all end. Well, the visuals are quite stunning, but I sensed a kind of darkness coming on as the movie progressed. Well, just that I think that if people want a different kind of movie experience, something that will challenge them and something that they cannot predict, this might be the film for you.
Said, what's your name, little girl, in the front row with your doughy eyes and your doughy mind? I bet you